Chapter 1. Ashes of a Promise. The wind in Manhattan was colder than she remembered. Arielle Morgan stepped out of the black cab onto the curb of Fifth Avenue, her heels clicking against the stone like quiet declarations. Her coat was a dark navy cashmere, belted tightly at the waist, her face half hidden behind oversized sunglasses. She hadn't set foot in New York for over 3 years. And yet, the city hadn't changed. It was still ruthless, relentless, beautifully indifferent. But she had. As she looked up at the towering building ahead, Calloway International, glass and steel slicing through the sky, her lips curved into the ghost of a smile. This was where it had all begun. And ended. 3 years ago, she'd walked into this building as Ethan Calloway's personal strategist and fiancé-to-be. Or so she thought. She still remembered the champagne bottle chilling in her office fridge, the silk dress she'd hidden in the back of her closet, the way her heart had raced every time Ethan brushed past her desk. And she remembered the press release. Ethan Calloway engaged to Olivia Harrow, a strategic merger of 2 empires. Arielle hadn't cried. Not even when her name was erased from the company records. Not even when security escorted her out of the building as if she were a stranger. The tears came later, alone in a hotel room with the curtains drawn and her phone buzzing with unanswered calls. She disappeared after that. No farewell, no explanation. Just vanished, leaving behind a storm of whispers and speculation. People called her weak. Some called her vindictive. The truth? She was broken. But she wasn't gone. And now she was back with new skin, new power, and a plan carved from every shard of betrayal. Inside the building, the receptionist barely looked up as Arielle passed security, her name already cleared. The elevator was empty. As she rose higher, so did the knot in her chest, not of fear, but of anticipation. The doors opened on the executive floor. Everything smelled of expensive leather and ambition. And there he was. Ethan Calloway stood at the far end of the hallway, deep in conversation with a board member. Tall, crisp, magnetic as ever. But the light in his eyes wasn't the same. It had dimmed, hardened. Success had always suited him. But guilt, she wondered, did it weigh on him the same way it weighed on her? He didn't recognize her immediately. Not with the tailored coat, the new last name on her investor profile, or the calm ice in her expression. When their eyes finally met, it happened like a collision of past and present. Arielle. Her name left his lips like a curse or a prayer. She removed her sunglasses slowly, her gaze locked on his. "Hello, Mr. Calloway," she said, voice like silk wrapped around a blade. He looked stunned, breathless. "You're alive. Were you hoping otherwise?" A pause. Tension crackled in the air. He took a slow step forward. "Where have you been?" "Building something." She tilted her head. "But I'm not here to talk about the past, Ethan. I'm here because I own 15% of your company now." Silence. Then his expression shifted, shock, disbelief, something that looked like fear. "Why?" he asked, almost whispering. Arielle smiled, sharp and unreadable. "To take back what I was never given the chance to finish," she said. "And maybe, to see if ghosts can still walk among the living." Chapter 2. The Art of Control. The boardroom had never been so silent. 12 men and women sat around the oval table, their attention torn between the quarterly projections on the screen and the woman standing at the head of the room. Arielle didn't flinch under the scrutiny. Her presence demanded attention, not just for her striking appearance, but for the quiet authority that clung to her like perfume. She tapped the edge of her silver pen against the glass tabletop once. "I believe you all have reviewed the terms," she said calmly. "My firm, Veritas Holdings, is now the 3rd largest shareholder in Calloway International." One of the directors, a gray-haired man with a nervous tick in his jaw, cleared his throat. "We weren't expecting such a shift." Arielle smiled, pleasant but cold. "That's how most corporate takeovers begin, Mr. Raleigh." With surprise. Ethan stood at the other end of the room, arms folded, gaze unreadable. He hadn't said a word since the meeting began. Every so often, his eyes would flicker toward her, half searching, half calculating, as if trying to piece together a ghost from the ashes of a fire he thought long dead. Arielle never gave him the satisfaction of meeting his gaze directly. Instead, she continued her presentation: new market strategies, leaner operations, a focus on ethical investment. Her words were clean, polished, lethal in their precision. She had come back not to plead for a place at the table, but to own it. When the meeting adjourned, executives murmured as they shuffled out, the room buzzing with confusion and a little fear. Arielle packed her notes slowly, purposefully. She could feel Ethan approaching before he spoke. "You've changed," he said, voice low. She turned, eyes calm. "People do. I didn't recognize you. That was the point." He studied her for a long moment. "You vanished, Arielle. No goodbye, no warning. And now you return with a hostile stake in my company." "Our company," she corrected. "And I didn't vanish. I evolved." "Why now?" She walked past him toward the window. The view stretched across the skyline, steel and glass glittering beneath pale afternoon sun. "Because timing," she said, "is everything in war and in business." He moved closer. "This isn't you." She turned, face unreadable. "You don't know who I am anymore." Their eyes locked. There it was again, that pull. The thread between them, frayed but unbroken. He took a step forward, but she held up a hand. "I'm not here to revisit the past, Ethan," she said quietly. "I'm here to reshape the future. And if I ask why you're really doing this?" She smiled faintly. "Then I'd ask why you married Olivia Harrow 48 hours after breaking every promise you made to me." Silence fell like a guillotine between them. His mouth parted, then closed again. Guilt flickered through his features. It was gone in a breath. "She's my wife," he said stiffly. "And I," Arielle replied, "am the woman you left standing in the ruins." A pause. Her voice softened just enough to be dangerous. "But don't worry, Ethan. I'm not here to ruin you. I'm here to remind you that you never truly knew what I was capable of." She stepped around him, heels echoing against the tile, and disappeared through the door without another word. He remained staring out the window long after she left, jaw clenched. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan Calloway realized he might no longer be the one holding all the power. Chapter 3: Shadows That Breathe. Rain fell in slow, deliberate rhythms over Manhattan that night, painting the city in a silver haze. From the 26th floor of the Sterling Hotel, Arielle stood barefoot by the floor-to-ceiling window, a glass of red wine in one hand, silence wrapped around her like silk. She had changed into a loose charcoal blouse, her hair pulled back in a low knot, elegant yet effortless. The TV flickered faintly behind her, news headlines scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Veritas Holdings shakes boardroom of Calloway International. The plan was working. But the cost? That came in quieter moments, like now when no one was watching and the memories found a way in. 3 years ago. The scent of citrus and linen. Ethan's breath on her neck. Her laughter tangled with his heartbeat. A sun-drenched apartment in Brooklyn. Their names carved into the wooden frame of a rooftop garden bed. "You're my forever," he had said once, voice barely above a whisper. And she had believed him. Back then, Arielle still believed that love was louder than fear. That loyalty was more than a fragile thread easily snapped by ambition, pressure, or betrayal. Now, she believed in contracts, in leverage, in silence. The knock at the door came just after 10. 2 gentle taps, then one sharp one. Exactly as agreed. Arielle set her glass down, straightened her blouse, and opened the door. Standing there in a leather jacket, rain still dripping from his curls, was Mason Chen. "You're early," she said. "You're surprised?" "No, just irritated." He smirked. "That's your default." She let him in without another word. Mason had been the first to find her after she disappeared from the public eye years ago. Back when she had nothing, no money, no name, just the sting of a betrayal that never quite healed. He'd offered her a deal, then a partnership. Now, they were tethered not just by business, but by an understanding neither had ever dared define. He dropped a manila folder on the table. "Everything on Olivia Harrow," he said. Real name, Olivia Sanders. Previously married. Settled a private lawsuit for workplace abuse in D.C. Her father's firm went bankrupt after some creative accounting. She changed her name and started over in New York. Arielle flipped through the photos, the records, the private correspondence. She married Ethan within 6 weeks of meeting him, Mason added. That alone smells like strategy. Arielle's voice was cold. Love is the prettiest weapon. Mason watched her carefully. You sure this is about business? She didn't look up. It's always about business. A long pause. You're getting in deep, he said. You take him down, there's no coming back. Arielle met his eyes. I'm not here to come back. I'm here to finish what he started. The room went quiet. Outside, lightning split the sky, throwing shadows across her face. But she didn't flinch. The next morning, Ethan stood at the edge of the rooftop terrace of Calloway Tower, fingers drumming against the balcony rail. The city buzzed below, oblivious to the war brewing in its heart. Behind him, Olivia's voice cut through the air. She's not here for peace. He turned slowly. No, she's not. Then why did you let her into the company? He sighed. Because I couldn't stop her. Because part of me thinks I deserve it. Olivia narrowed her eyes. If you hesitate, she'll ruin us. I'm not hesitating. She moved closer, voice lowered. You always had a soft spot for her. Ethan's jaw clenched. She was never soft. But you were. With her. He didn't respond. She placed a hand on his chest. Don't forget who's by your side now. He looked down at her, but all he could see were Arielle's eyes, steel and storm, and the fire of 1,000 buried promises. He closed his eyes. This was no longer just about business. It never had been. Chapter 4. The Price of Betrayal. The elevator ride to the basement archive of Calloway International was slow, too slow for Arielle's pulse, which pounded steadily beneath her calm exterior. The place hadn't changed much since she worked here years ago, when she was just another bright analyst, trying to survive the cutthroat world of corporate finance. But back then, she hadn't known the documents she filed, the contracts she vetted, the deals she celebrated, were soaked in rot. Back then, she hadn't known Ethan had already chosen a future that didn't include her. She stepped into the dim corridor, her heels echoing against cold concrete. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, flickering once before stabilizing. The archive room was tucked into the far corner, a space most executives never visited, trusting underlings to handle the less glamorous bones of the empire. Arielle wasn't here for glamour. She keyed in the code Mason had provided, an old one, still active, proof of how little Ethan had changed the system. Still overconfident. Still arrogant enough to believe no one would dare dig through the past. The door clicked open. Inside, rows of filing cabinets and locked drawers lined the walls, each marked with barcodes and opaque acronyms. But she wasn't interested in the ordinary. She moved to a black cabinet near the back, unlabeled, out of sequence. She inserted a secondary key, turned it sharply, and pulled the drawer open. There it was. Project Acheron. The name meant little to outsiders. But to Arielle, it was the beginning of the end. A shell company under Calloway's umbrella. A cover for illegal capital transfers during a pharmaceutical merger. She had discovered inconsistencies in the reports years ago, brought them to Ethan, naively believing he would do the right thing. Instead, he'd buried the findings. Then he buried her. He'd let her take the fall for a breach she didn't commit. Months of investigation, scrutiny, headlines. No indictment, no proof, but enough poison to destroy her reputation. Clients dropped her, Partners ghosted her. Job offers vanished. And Ethan? He moved on with pristine hands and a new last name on his marriage certificate. Now, standing here, Arielle ran her fingers across the yellowing papers. She photographed each page, scanned the digital backups onto the drive Mason had given her. The evidence was enough to dismantle Ethan's career if released at the right time. But it wasn't about the fall. It was about the truth. About reclaiming everything she'd lost. Footsteps sounded down the hall. She snapped the drawer shut and turned just as a figure appeared in the doorway. Ethan. They stared at each other in the dim light. His expression unreadable. Her face carefully blank. "Looking for something?" he asked. "I could ask you the same. You shouldn't be down here. Neither should you." He stepped inside, letting the door close behind him. "I should have known you'd find it eventually." Her eyes didn't waver. "And what would you have done if I had? Frame me again." He paused. "That wasn't the way it was supposed to go." "Then how was it supposed to go, Ethan?" "You betray me. Marry Olivia. Rewrite the story until I'm just a footnote in your legacy. I tried to protect you. You protected yourself." The words hit like steel. He moved closer. "I regret it every day." "Good," she said coldly. Regrets a fitting crown for a man who built his empire on the bones of someone who loved him. A long silence. "I didn't know Olivia was behind it," he said quietly. "She leaked the audit records. She framed you. I only found out later." Arielle's breath caught, but she didn't let it show. "You could have cleared my name." He looked down. "I was a coward." A pause. Sharp. Final. "Well," she said, voice low. "Now I'm the storm you thought you'd weathered." He opened his mouth, but she was already walking past him. Not running. Not breaking. Rising. Outside, the rain had stopped. But in Arielle's chest, the thunder was just beginning. She wasn't here for justice. She was here for the reckoning. Chapter 5. Masks and Daggers. The ballroom at the Wintercrest Foundation Gala was drenched in gold. Chandelier light bounced off champagne flutes and sequin gowns, illuminating smiles too polished and laughter too hollow. It was the kind of night designed to dazzle, to blind. But Arielle walked through it as if she were stepping into war, because she was. Mason had warned her not to come. "This is their world," he'd said. "You step into it with blood on your heels, they'll smell it." But that was the point. Let them smell it. Let them wonder. Arielle wore a black satin dress that clung like armor, her hair slicked back into a high, sharp bun. No jewelry except a single emerald ring, an inheritance from a mother who taught her how to survive silence, not luxury. She didn't need diamonds. She needed answers. And tonight, one of them was in the room. Olivia Harrow. The Queen of Ice herself, dressed in silver that matched her mask. Laughing too sweetly beside hedge fund executives and foreign diplomats. A vision of poise, grace, and destruction. Arielle took a glass of champagne from a passing waiter, her eyes never leaving Olivia. From across the room, Ethan saw her too. He stiffened, just slightly, as if a phantom had materialized from the shadows of his past. He excused himself from his group, weaving through the crowd with calculated urgency. "Arielle," he said, voice low as he reached her. "This isn't the place." She sipped her drink, eyes still locked on Olivia. "No, Ethan. This is exactly the place. You don't know what she's capable of." "I'm beginning to. She'll ruin you." She already tried. Arielle turned to face him now, her voice calm but laced with venom. "She took my name, my future, my place beside you. What more can she possibly take?" Ethan glanced around. "You want to make a scene?" She smiled. "No, I want to make a move." Before he could respond, Olivia appeared, gliding between them like she had always belonged. "Arielle," she said, her voice as honeyed as ever. "I didn't realize ghosts were invited tonight." "And yet here you are," Arielle replied, tilting her head. Olivia's eyes flicked to Ethan, then back to her. "Still clinging to old wounds?" No, Arielle said. Just inspecting the knives that made them. For a moment, the tension around them sucked the air out of the room. Then Olivia laughed, light and effortless. You always did like dramatics. But you should be careful. Nostalgia can cloud judgment. And betrayal, Arielle said softly, can sharpen it. Ethan looked between them like a man trapped in a house built from his own lies. Olivia's smile hardened. Be careful what you dig up, Arielle. You may find things buried for a reason. Arielle stepped forward, voice like ice. I found Project Acheron. And you can tell your lawyers the leak's already been copied 6 times, scheduled to auto-release if anything happens to me. Olivia's mask didn't crack, but her eyes did. A flicker, a tremble. Victory. Just a tremor. The music swelled. The crowd applauded something irrelevant. And Arielle walked away, not looking back. Later that night, in a quiet corner suite overlooking the city, Arielle stood before Mason, tossing her heels onto the couch and unzipping the dress with one hand. She knows, Mason said, watching her with narrowed eyes. She's scared, Arielle corrected. Good. No, not yet, but she will be. He studied her for a long moment. You sure about all this? Once the files go public, she'll burn, Arielle said. And he'll fall with her. Mason walked to the window, folding his arms. And then, she paused. And then? She didn't know. She only knew that tonight, she had stood face to face with the woman who broke her and didn't flinch. Elsewhere, Olivia stood in her private office, fingers trembling as she poured herself a drink. She's bluffing, she whispered. But something inside her knew. Arielle never bluffed. Chapter 6. Collateral Lies. 3 days. That was all it took for the first cracks to appear. Project Acheron's name leaked, first on a fringe financial blog, then on a mainstream outlet that dared to whisper Calloway International's name alongside terms like fraud, offshore laundering, and shell corporations. It wasn't proof yet, but it was smoke. And where there was smoke, someone would dig for fire. Inside her apartment, Arielle watched the news ticker scroll across the bottom of the screen, her bare feet curled beneath her as Mason stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear. He ended the call and turned to her. They're rattled. I just got word. Olivia's having every contract from the past 6 years audited privately. And Ethan's canceled 3 public appearances. Damage control is in motion. Good. Arielle didn't look away from the screen. Let them sweat. Mason walked over, his voice softer now. You know this doesn't end with a headline. They'll strike back. They already did, she said coldly. Everything after is just karma echoing. He studied her. It's not just them you want revenge on. Arielle's throat tightened. He was right. Because under all of it, the ruined career, the lies, the betrayal, there was the wound Ethan had left not in her resume, but in her heart. He hadn't just sacrificed her reputation. He had sacrificed them. And worse, he had let her believe it had been love. Later that evening, at the Calloway penthouse, Ethan stood in the study, the file folder Arielle had used to corner him spread out on the desk. You should have told me, he said. Olivia raised a brow from the doorway. Told you what? That your ex still has a martyr complex. He slammed the folder shut. That you leaked those audit records. That you framed her. Her smirk faded. I did what needed to be done. You were being reckless. She was digging too close to things she didn't understand. She trusted me. No, Olivia snapped. She controlled you. You were so enamored by her righteousness, you would have thrown away everything we built. What we built was based on a lie. Her voice dropped. And lies hold up empires better than truth ever did. You of all people should know that. He stared at her. It was the first time he truly saw her not as the composed strategist or his clever partner, but as someone who had never loved him, only used him to reinforce her crown. He turned away, breath shaky. She's going to bury us, he said. Olivia's eyes narrowed. Not if I bury her first. Meanwhile, Arielle stepped into a dimly lit cafe across the river. A coded message had summoned her. "Meet me. 9 p.m. I know who helped Olivia." A figure sat in the corner booth, hood pulled low. As she approached, he looked up, and her breath caught. Darren Wynn, Olivia's former legal advisor. Exiled from Calloway after a failed lawsuit 2 years ago. Everyone thought he'd disappeared to Europe. "I thought you were in Zurich," she said. "I was," he said, voice calm. "Until I saw your name pop up again." He slid a flash drive across the table. "This has internal memos. Names. Timelines. Olivia didn't work alone. The board knew. Ethan suspected." Arielle stared at the drive. "Why help me?" Darren smiled faintly. "I lost everything protecting their secrets. Maybe it's time they lost everything too." She took the drive. Everything was aligning. The pieces, the players, the endgame. She stood. "Darren," she said before leaving. "When this goes public, there will be blood." He nodded, then aimed for the throat. At midnight, Ethan opened a secure email. From unknown sender at protonmail.com. Subject: You knew. Attachment: 001truth.pdf. He clicked it open and saw his own signature authorizing the shell company. The date, the transfer, all of it. He hadn't remembered signing it, because Olivia had forged it. Or worse, he had signed it, trusting blindly, not questioning. And now the truth was weaponized. He leaned back in his chair, breathing hard. He thought the worst part would be losing his career. But it wasn't. It was the moment he realized. He had become the villain in the story of the only woman who ever truly loved him. Chapter 7. Blood on the Contract. The city was a blur beneath Arielle's apartment window, lights flickering like nerves under a skin of glass and steel. She stood barefoot on the cold floor, gripping a mug of untouched coffee. Her laptop sat open on the desk behind her. The flash drive Darren had given her plugged in and glowing faintly. She hadn't opened it yet. Not fully, because she knew once she did, there would be no return. No space for mercy. No time for questions. Only war. Mason entered quietly. "You haven't slept." She didn't turn. "Sleep is for the innocent." He moved beside her, glancing at the drive. "So you're really doing this?" She nodded. "Once I release it, it'll be picked up by every investigative outlet within the hour." "Then what?" "Then Olivia falls. And Ethan falls with her." Mason hesitated. "And you?" She looked at him for the first time that morning. Her eyes were dry, but not calm. "I rise." Meanwhile, Olivia was losing control. Her boardroom, once her throne, now felt like a cage of whispers and suspicion. Board members exchanged glances she couldn't interpret. Her assistant walked slower than usual. Even the coffee tasted off, as if the universe itself had begun to sour against her. She slammed her hand on the table. "Find me the leak." Now, the legal team shuffled. Someone mumbled something about cloud permissions. Another mentioned external email traces. All excuses. All stalling. They knew. They were waiting for the fall to begin so they could abandon ship. Olivia stood, her voice low and lethal. If Arielle Thorne wants war, then she'll learn what war feels like. That afternoon, Arielle received a package. No name, no return address. Inside was a single photo, blurry but unmistakable. Her younger sister, Emmy, at a small cafe in Prague. A note attached. "She still likes jasmine tea. Leave Calloway alone. Or I take her next." Her knees buckled as the blood drained from her face. Mason caught her just in time. They found Emmy. He took the note from her, read it, and his expression turned into steel. "We need to move her. Now." Arielle shook her head, panic blooming. "They know where she is. They found her. Mason, if they hurt her, they won't." His voice was hard now. "We'll get her out." She swallowed, heart hammering. For the first time, This wasn't just revenge. This was a hostage negotiation. That evening, Ethan stood at the rooftop of his penthouse, staring at the city like it held answers. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He picked up. Ethan Calloway? A voice said. Male. Cold. Yes. Consider this a courtesy. Your ex has made enemies. And enemies leave scars. Click. He stared at the phone. And then he knew. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was blood now. He called Arielle. She didn't answer. But she did receive the voicemail. Arielle, listen to me. Whatever you're planning, stop. Olivia's lost control. There are people involved now who don't care about truth or guilt. They'll come for you. And your sister. I didn't know they'd go that far. Please, let me help you. She stared at the message, then deleted it. But her hands trembled, because love could rot, but it never disappeared completely. And Ethan's voice still sounded like safety, even when it was built on betrayal. Still, she inserted the flash drive, opened the files, and dragged the folder titled Acheron Truth into a private cloud server labeled Swan Protocol. The timer began. 24 hours. Unless manually stopped, the files would go live. She closed the laptop and whispered to herself, "You wanted fire, Olivia. Let's see how well you burn." Chapter 8, No Saints, Only Survivors. The rain started just after midnight, sharp needles against the windows, tapping like the rhythm of approaching war. Arielle sat in silence, Mason beside her, both watching the screen as the timer ticked down. 18 hours, 43 minutes, and 12 seconds. 18 hours until exposure. Unless she stopped it. Unless she lost her nerve. I can get you to Prague by morning, Mason said, breaking the quiet. I've already contacted someone to extract Emmy. Quietly. Safely. Arielle nodded slowly, but her eyes never left the screen. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? Mason exhaled. Right doesn't matter anymore. Only what's necessary. Arielle turned to him. What if I'm no better than them? You're not, he said, gently. Because they burned the world to protect themselves. You're only lighting a match to show what was always there. In a private office, Olivia met with someone she hadn't spoken to in 3 years. A man named Laurent Kwan. A fixer. The kind that governments denied existing but kept on speed dial. She has a sister, Olivia said. A weakness. Laurent raised an eyebrow. A child. 21. Autistic. Vulnerable. He sipped his drink. And you want leverage? I want silence. At any cost. He considered her for a moment. You are always so clean, Olivia. You sure you want to get your hands this dirty? She didn't blink. No one survives the top by staying clean. Meanwhile, Ethan drove through the rain like it might wash away his guilt. He'd made the call to Arielle. She didn't answer. He understood why. But he couldn't stand by anymore, not now that lives were involved. He had loved her. Still did, even if love came too late to matter. He pulled over near the archives building, punching in a security code he wasn't supposed to have. The place was dark, silent, only emergency lights lining the marble hall. He went to storage room 13. Inside, he dug out the original Acheron papers, the ones before Olivia's edit, the ones that Arielle had tried to bring to light. And there it was. Her name, redacted, not as a whistleblower, but as a scapegoat. They had prepared her downfall before she even made her first accusation. It had always been a trap. In Prague, Emmy stepped off the tram, clutching a book to her chest, unaware of the 2 men trailing her in the rain. She sat at the cafe window, ordered her jasmine tea, and opened her copy of The Little Prince. When the man across from her suddenly leaned in and said, "Your sister sent me," she didn't panic. She tilted her head and smiled faintly. "You're late," she said. The man, Lucas, Mason's contact, blinked. "Excuse me," she said, "if you're not here before page 47, you're too late." He looked at the book. She was on page 48. He grinned despite himself. "Touché. He took her hand. "Come on, Miss Thorne. We're going home." But he didn't notice the other man still watching from the alley. Not yet. Back in New York, Arielle opened her inbox. A new message. Subject: "Do you really want to do this?" No sender. Just an attachment. A short video clip. She pressed play. It was Emmy laughing, sipping tea, today's date in the corner. The camera zoomed slightly, shaky, from behind a wall of ivy. Someone had filmed her. Had been that close. The email message below the video read, "Call off the leak, or next time we won't miss." Arielle froze. The cursor hovered over the kill switch. She could stop the upload. She could save her sister. But she knew Olivia. This wouldn't stop. It would only buy silence with fear, and fear never lasted. She took a shaky breath. "I'm so sorry, Emmy," she whispered, and didn't stop the timer. The next morning, Olivia Calloway arrived at her office and found the building surrounded by press. Flashbulbs, cameras, shouts. She didn't even make it inside. Her assistant met her on the steps, pale-faced, clutching a phone. "It's live," she said. "Everywhere. CNN, The Guardian, The Journal, Reddit, even TikTok, for God's sake." "What's live?" "The Acheron files." The world knew. The money trail. The shell corporations. The memo from Olivia's own desk, ordering the redaction of Arielle's name. Ethan's forged approval. The laundering through humanitarian funds. Everything. Gone viral in under 30 minutes. Olivia didn't speak. Didn't blink. Just turned around and walked back into her car. And for the first time in a decade, she didn't know what to do. Timer. Midnight. Swan protocol complete. The storm had broken. And nothing would ever be the same again. Chapter 9. The Cost of Fire. By the time the headlines reached every screen in the city, Arielle was already on the move. Mason drove her through the dawn mist, the air heavy with smoke and rain. The world outside their windshield seemed quieter than usual, like the city itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would rise from the ruins. "What happens now?" Mason asked, keeping his eyes on the road. Arielle didn't answer at first. Her fingers trembled in her lap, not from fear, but from adrenaline. From pain. From knowing there was no return. "They'll come for me," she said softly. "And when they do, I won't hide." In Prague, Lucas had moved Emmy to a safe house in the old quarter. Arielle's sister never asked why. She only said, "Is Arielle okay?" "She will be," Lucas replied, though he wasn't certain. "She just set fire to an empire." Emmy nodded and looked out the window. "I used to dream she would burn it down." Lucas raised a brow. "What made you stop dreaming it?" "I didn't." She smiled faintly. "I just started believing she actually would." Across the Atlantic, Olivia sat in a silent boardroom. The Calloway Group had officially suspended her. Her shares were frozen, her accounts locked for audit. Her name, once gilded in every newspaper's finance column, was now a tag under corporate corruption on every news aggregator. Still, she didn't weep. She didn't rage. She planned. "Get me Laurent," she said to her assistant. "Tell him I want the sister. Today." But Ms. Calloway. Not Miss Calloway anymore, she cut in, her voice cold, but still powerful. "Until the last match goes out." Meanwhile, Ethan made his choice. He stood in front of Arielle's door for 20 minutes before he knocked. When she opened it, her face went blank, then hard. "I should slam this in your face. I deserve that." "What do you want, Ethan?" "I came to help." She scoffed, already closing the door. He blocked it with his hand, not forcefully, but enough. "I have proof Olivia's already activated something worse. Not legal, not corporate. People." She paused. "What people?" "The kind who don't care about laws." "She's not going down alone, Arielle. She's pulling you with her." "Then she'll have to drag me," Arielle hissed, stepping back. "And if Emmy gets hurt, I'll protect her. I swear. She stared at him for a long, cold moment. Then, you don't get to promise anything anymore. But she let him in. That night, a black SUV stopped 2 blocks from Emmy's safe house. Inside, Laurent Quan lit a cigarette and checked the coordinates on his phone. She's here. His partner, a younger man with tattoos and no conscience, grinned. Orders? No blood, Laurent muttered. Not yet. Take the girl. Send a message. At 2:13 a.m., the safe house alarm triggered. Lucas barely had time to get Emmy into the basement panic room before the front window shattered. 2 men entered. Efficient. Professional. Lucas fought hard, but he was outnumbered. They left him unconscious. But they didn't find Emmy. When Arielle got the call, her scream cracked her throat. She's missing. No, Lucas croaked. They didn't get her. I locked her in the lower chamber. But they know now. They'll come back. Arielle's world tilted. The war was no longer metaphorical. It was personal. At the same time, Olivia received a call from an encrypted number. Laurent's voice came through, laced with annoyance. She wasn't there. She was supposed to be, Olivia snapped. I don't work off supposed to be. You want guarantees, you hire a magician. Olivia was silent for a long second. Then send her a different message. What kind? One she'll never forget. The next morning, a package arrived at Arielle's hotel. Inside was a photo of Emmy's bedroom in New York. Smashed. Burned. A matchbox lay on top, labeled Calloway Group/Private Archives. Underneath, a single line in black ink. She doesn't have to die. But you do. Arielle stood staring at it long after the room emptied of sound. Mason read the note behind her. They're getting desperate. She turned to him, voice breaking. They're not just threatening me. They're erasing me. My past. My name. Everything. Mason met her gaze. Then we do the one thing they never expected. What? We survive. Chapter 10. The Afterlight. The wind that swept through the private Calloway estate carried no sound, only the promise of reckoning. Arielle stood just outside the wrought iron gates, dressed in black, eyes burning brighter than any fire Olivia had ever ignited. Inside, a press conference was beginning. Olivia had gathered what remained of her inner circle, hoping to pivot the narrative one last time. She would deny everything. Blame rogue agents. Paint herself as a visionary betrayed by the system she built. But she didn't know Arielle was already inside. Because Ethan got her in. Because Ethan finally chose a side. 30 minutes earlier. The back hallway's clear, he said, handing Arielle a keycard. Security's distracted. They're watching the press like it's the Super Bowl. Arielle hesitated. Why now? Why help me? Ethan didn't smile. Because truth isn't optional anymore. And because I couldn't live if she got hurt. Either of you. Arielle stared at him, then nodded. No forgiveness. Just understanding. That was enough. Now, in the control room, Mason sent the final upload from a secure drive. Thousands of documents. Voicemails. Video clips. Everything Olivia tried to hide. He pressed enter and whispered, lights out. On stage, Olivia began. I stand before you today not as a villain, but as a servant of progress. Arielle stepped into the spotlight. Every camera turned. Every phone lifted. Gasps. Shouts. Olivia faltered. You're trespassing. No, Arielle said calmly. I'm returning something that was stolen. She turned to the press. My name is Arielle Thorne. I am the whistleblower of the Acheron Project. 3 years ago, I was framed, silenced, and hunted. Today, I take back my voice. Reporters surged forward. Olivia lunged toward her. But Arielle pulled a small remote from her coat and clicked it. On the giant screen behind them, the first file opened. Confidential. Directives from Olivia Calloway / redaction order. Arielle Thorne. Olivia froze. The audience exploded in noise. Security swarmed. Arielle stepped down, face calm. She didn't need to run anymore. The world was watching. 1 week later, Olivia Calloway was indicted on 8 counts of fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Her assets were frozen. Her company dismantled. Ethan testified before Congress. Mason published a book. Lucas received a medal for protecting a civilian in a covert emergency. And Arielle? She vanished from the spotlight. Moved to a quiet cottage in southern France with Emmy, who now smiled more easily, walked without fear. The world called her a hero, but she called herself something else. Just a woman who survived. 1 year later, a letter arrived for her. No return address. Inside, a single photo. A sunflower field. And the words, "Not all things burn stay, Ash. Some bloom." Arielle smiled, then set the photo on the windowsill, beside a fresh pot of tea and a copy of The Little Prince. The world had burned, but from its ruins, she had rebuilt her own. The end. Epilogue, Seeds in the Ashes. 3 years later, in a quiet corner of Provence, nestled between lavender fields and sleepy hills, there stood a small tea shop called L'Oubli du, the Sweet Forgetting. Its owner was a woman with soft eyes and long hair, usually tied back in a silk ribbon. She rarely spoke more than necessary, but people came not for words, they came for peace. Her name was Arielle. No one in the village knew her past. They didn't know she once brought down a powerful empire, or that her silence used to be forged from betrayal and fire. Here, she was just the woman who always served the right cup of tea at the exact moment someone needed it most. Emmy was older now. She painted every afternoon and often ran barefoot through the fields to bring Arielle her newest sketch, a sunflower, a bird in flight, sometimes just color and light. One day, she asked softly, "Do you ever regret it, Ari?" "All of it." Arielle didn't answer at first. Instead, she opened a drawer and pulled out a small seed, a sunflower. If this seed had been stepped on, dropped in dry earth, forgotten in the dark, she asked, "Do you think it could still grow?" Emmy tilted her head. "If someone watered it." Arielle smiled. "Exactly." One late summer morning, a package arrived with no return address. Inside was a thin manuscript. Title, Ashes of a Promise. Unpublished draft. Signed, E.T. Tucked into the final page was a single line. "Thank you for not becoming them. You were always fire, not ash." Arielle traced the writing with her fingertips. No reply was needed. The past had found its end. That night, Emmy placed a small potted sunflower on the windowsill. The petals trembled in the wind. The moonlight made them glow. Arielle poured 2 cups of tea, mint, and jasmine. Outside, the world kept turning. Inside, something had finally bloomed.